Hi, BookTube. I recently rearranged my shelves behind me, over here to the side, over here. I have books everywhere. I recently rearranged them by genre. Yeah, so I thought I'd come on here and talk about genres, some stats about my shelves in regards to that, and some of my favorite genres. Now, I am a genre hopper. I do not like sticking to one genre. I like variety in what I read. So there's a lot I feel represented on my shelves in regards to genre. Let's hop onto it. I don't want to talk too much about nonfiction because I think like nonfiction is not like, I don't know if the right word is genre as opposed to like subject that the books talk about. So I'll just quickly tell you that the most popular subjects represented in my nonfiction books are religion, because I'm very interested in religion. Most of those are about Christianity, but I do have other religions represented, and I'm trying to branch out and learn about other. I know I'm not ignorant about other religions, but I'd like to read more focused books on religions as opposed to just like having like a Wikipedia level knowledge, if that makes sense, about religions. So learn more about issues and nuances and stuff in religion. So those, I have 117 books on my shelves, not including Bibles. If we included Bibles, that number would jump. Yeah, so 117 books on religion. The next most popular one is actually biography, and I kind of lumped memoir and autobiography and biographies together. And if you'd asked me a few years ago, I wasn't a big nonfiction reader anyways, and I would have then said I'm not really a big memoir biography reader as well. And that's still not a genre that I really lean towards, but there are some really fascinating stories about people that I would like to read about. And that is 47 books that are biography or memoir. And then after that, the next big one is history, followed shortly by the overbranching science. So history, I have a minor in history. I concentrated on Latin American history in university for my minor. So I have some books from that time period, but also I'm interested generally in history. I'm more interested in how do I put like European, Canadian, or Asian history. I'm not at all interested in American history. Sorry, it's just something that I don't care. But saying that too, like when I say like generic American or World War II history, I am interested in like African American history or the history of religion in America, that kind of stuff, but not just like general topics. I'm more like, when it comes to nonfiction in general, I keep talking about scripted, I'm just all over the place here, but for nonfiction in general, the more specific the book is and the focus is of the book, the more likely I am to enjoy it and read it. So like, I'm not going to pick up a book that says history of Canada. I am going to pick up a book. I have one called The Hanging of Angelique Cooper, which is about the hanging of a black woman and racism and slavery in Canada. So like that is like a very specific topic. So that's what I prefer in my nonfiction in general. The science category is biology, nature. I think I threw geography in there because I have some books, I call it geography in general, but they're books about like city building and urban planning and stuff like that. So I guess yes, geography, but it's a science, so it's in the science collection. A lot of them are about dinosaurs because I absolutely love dinosaurs, and I love Steve Bersati's books, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs and the rise and reign of the mammals. Because it also gets very specific. Like in the rise and reign of the mammals, it's not just about like the evolution of mammals. It is, a lot of it concentrates on like teeth and how that shows evolution. Like that is a common thread in that book. And another thing I like in nonfiction is when authors showcase their passion. I'm again going to go back to Steve Bersati here. You can just feel how passionate he is about the topic. And also John Krakauer is really good too. Under the Banner of Heaven by John Krakauer. He would go on tangents and then he'd include footnotes. He's like, I couldn't find a way to incorporate it in the story, but I really wanted to share this information with you. And I just love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah, that's all I'm going to talk about in regards to nonfiction. I want to move on now to fiction. So I'm looking at my spreadsheet and I do have 310 books that are categorized as just fiction. I couldn't find another category to put them in, or their categories were too much that I just decided just plain old fiction. They'll sit there. Or like they're weird fiction, and I kind of do want to go through, maybe separate weird fiction out, but weird fiction to me is like a subjective category. Like I'm looking right now over here at Earthlings by Siaka Murata, and that would be like a weird book that I would pick out, and so it'd be like House of Leaves. But like my problem with I encountered with my shelves and organizing by genre was books are not always just one genre. So especially when you get into like weird fiction, it's just like there's horror that's weird, but then there's like uncategorized fiction that's also weird. So it's very, like, if you think too much about it, it is very confusing. Yeah. So I don't want to do that. Yes. So the next biggest category on my shelf at 262 books is fantasy, which was a little surprising because I think I prefer science fiction over fantasy, but I think fantasy has a lot of series and long series. So I think that might be why fantasy is much bigger represented on my shelf. Not much bigger. So there's 262. Oh, snap diddly. I got the numbers wrong. Okay, no, so there's... I gotta make my screen bigger. Here. So there's 262 fiction books, and there's 310 fantasy books. So the fantasy outnumbers the fiction. I didn't think that was the case. Sorry, the screen was tiny print and far away, and fiction and fantasy are right by each other, so that's crazy. But also not crazy at the same time. Yeah. And fantasy is like what I read a lot of when I was younger, and so there's a lot of nostalgia attached to the fantasy as well. So that's why a lot of the books are on my shelf still. Like, I'm just looking here. So it's right here, how handy. The Abarat series, if you haven't read this, it's pretty cool. I like it mostly for, well, the story, and then like, we got like full page pictures in here. And Clive Barker usually writes horror, but this story is pretty cool. Yeah, there's the different worlds. I gotta reread this series and get the final book, the third book in the series finally. I only have the first two. So yeah, fantasy. I really like fantasy because, I mean, you can escape into it, and the world building, the chances for world building I think are really much bigger in fantasy as opposed to a lot of science fiction. A lot of science fiction relies on having Earth as a history, whereas fantasy, that can also do that. Like if you look at Wheel of Time, they have Earth as a history. Even though that's more like Easter egg kind of stuff, but what you're doing in fantasy is creating whole new worlds, creating governments and magics and languages and all this kind of stuff. So like there's more opportunity to get lost in fantasy, and admire the world building. Like I really admire Malazan, the world and the magic system and the government and everything in that is just like holy cow, man, like, this is pretty astounding. Or sometimes you can have something like, it's also like a lot of YA is fantasy, so it's a lot of get in there good, get that thrilling read, and it's quick. So there's that too. And then the next biggest genre, and I will get the number right, is science fiction. Science fiction is 227 books on my shelf, and if you were to press me, I would say science fiction is my favorite genre. It's my favorite, like, TV, movie, reading, video game. Like, I love science fiction. A lot of classic science fiction too I really like. And one of the reasons I really like science fiction is because it addresses two things. First, this overarching question of what it means to be human. How far, some books, some authors take it, how far can you change humanity and still have it be recognized as humans? You see this especially in Octavia E. Butler, Xenogenesis series, or Lilith's Brood, it's also called, where she, like, has aliens take humans and alter them and then breed with them. And it's just like, are then the children, the hybrid children of the aliens and the humans, are they then recognizable as humans? What characteristics, physical characteristics, what emotional, psychological characteristics are still recognizable as human in them? Or they take something like a robot and, you know, how, like, iRobot, this is the most obvious example there, by Isaac Asimov, is that how much, or I'm thinking off the top of my head here, sorry, do androids dream of electric sheep? Like, where is the line between robots and humans there then? So it's a lot about, like, empathy and recognizing humanity, and how different we all are, but how we can also connect, because, you know, that's a robot. That is, like, nothing about that is human, but yet what kind of characteristics can that robot have that will then make us have empathy for it and recognize it as human enough? And then in ourselves as well, those characteristics. So creating empathy for yourself and empathy for others and empathy for your Roomba. Just like everything. Yeah. And then the other thing I think science fiction does, and good science fiction does, is it addresses issues that are prevalent now, and it tells you to worry about them now, because otherwise this thing that's happening in the future might happen. Taking things to extremes. You see that in a lot of classic science fiction, especially, is what happens if we let, like, if you just think of, like, 1984, that's the most obvious example. That doesn't feel science fiction, but to me I categorize it as science fiction because it takes place in the future. It deals with ideas that science fiction deals with. Yeah, I'm gonna go on and on. But, like, it takes this idea of, like, no privacy. And if we take that to the extreme, you know, pitting it obviously in your face, like, these are issues, this is what can happen if we take this to the extreme. It's a warning to deal with these issues. And some of them deal with social issues, some of them deal with political issues, some of them deal with environmental issues. That's especially prevalent now, right? I really like science fiction for those reasons. So science fiction, I think, is my all-time favorite genre. And also they can just be, like, really thrilling. Like, I unashamedly love action movies. And if it's a science fiction action movie, like 65, that was a recent-ish movie, with Adam Driver, about landing on a planet from a spaceship, and there's dinosaurs and they gotta fight them, and I'm just like, this is awesome. I love this, you know, thrilling aspect of it. And sometimes that can happen in books as well. I'm thinking of, well, it's not, I still link that. It's not, if I look at it objectively, The Machineries of Empire by Yoon-Ha Lee also gave me that kind of like thrill at points, like the battle sequences and like just like the weird things that you can do in space. Just like, it's weird. It's awesome. It's I got like galaxy print. That's why I love galaxy print stuff, because space is awesome. And then we like drop down. I did not realize how much historical fiction I had on my shelf. Apparently the 84 books on my shelf are categorized as historical fiction. I don't know what it is about historical fiction. That's why I'm surprised that I had so many on my shelf that were historical fiction. I can't tell you why I like it. I do not like World War II historical fiction. I'm harping on about like not liking World War II. It's to me, fascination with World War II is almost like a dog whistle for like right-wing toxic masculinity. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's just like my experience and my feelings about it. And I'd rather just stay away from World War II. I studied it. I taught it at one point. I'm done with World War II. There's important things there that we can learn from, but like, I'd rather just, you know, there's other things that happen in history, similar things that happen in history that we can also learn from that we should not forget. All that kind of stuff. Anyways, historical fiction, yeah. I don't know why. Because I like history. The next biggest genre is mystery, and I do like mysteries. I like how I feel comfortable in mysteries, because you know, like, you're gonna get a little bit of suspense there. It's kind of like the challenge of figuring out who done it. Yeah, it's just entertaining. I don't hold mystery up as like, you know, super high genre-wise. I'm not looking for exploration of like important issues in mysteries. I'm just looking for, you know, did the I can't think of anything right now. Did the cafe owner kill them, or was it the ex-boyfriend? I'm thinking of a cozy mystery because I just saw the book of cat mysteries on my shelf. But like, I don't read a lot of cozy mysteries. I tend to read more like, I don't know, other mysteries, if that makes sense. Then, okay, I know short stories isn't a genre, but I kind of group them all together. So I'm not going to talk about short stories. And then poetry. I'm not going to talk about that. Or plays. The next genre represented, it's a tie between superhero and humor, and superhero is just comics. So I'm not going to talk about them. I love comics. Comics are awesome. My favorite genre, my two favorite genres when it comes to comics, outside of Batman, are three favorite genres. I'm off on a tangent now, talking about comics. My three favorite genres when it comes to comics are like one-off contemporaries about a specific thing. Can I think of anything off the top of my head? No, but I know it when I see it, and I like it. Graphic novels and comics are more about like art to me than about stories, so, but story-wise, contemporary one-shots are good. And then, totally blanking, crime, like, as I said, I love action, so, like, crime obviously, like, has a lot of links to action. And horror, actually. Horror comics are pretty cool. I think because a lot of horror artists are really good, that's probably why I prefer my horror in comic form. I don't like horror movies, but I can deal with horror comics. I don't know why. Because I guess I can close the book. I can always turn off the TV too, but I don't know. There's something more real about like horror, watching horror, than as opposed to like reading a comic or reading a book about it. So yeah, back onto like words just words on the page mostly, as opposed to like comics and graphic novels. The next genre is humor, and I was wondering about that because I was not finding any humor books when I was organizing my shelves, and I realized most of the humor is actually children's books. I love children's books. A lot of them fall into the fantasy genre or the humor genre for me. So that's what that is. This like Roald Dahl, he's like older kids chapter books. But Robert Munsch, love Robert Munsch. And I gotta look at my shelves to find more authors. Shel Silverstein is amazing. Oh, the guy who wrote... I have a book called Farts in the Wild. And once I put batteries in the book, it farts. If you push the buttons. And it talks about like animal farts and like what they smell like and how long they last. And yeah, it's funny, right? I think I categorize that book as science though, as opposed to humor, but it's funny anyways. So yeah, humor. I was also very surprised to find that I had 10 books that I could categorize as romance on my shelf. But let me explain that a bit. Because I put Sense and Sensibility under romance. I decided classic was no longer working as a genre for me. That I would rather categorize those books as genres. That classic was more in reference to a time period as opposed to a genre. So yeah, I have the Brontes in there. The one Jane Austen book I kept, which is Sense and Sensibility. I really don't like Pride and Prejudice. I had to read it so much the first time I read it, the second time I read it, the third, fourth, fifth time I read it, I didn't like it. I've written so many essays on it, just not appealing to me. So I have Sense and Sensibility to give another try. Because I kind of like Northanger Abbey, so... But we'll talk about Jane Austen some other time. I have The Winter's Tale, which, see, it's not straightforward romance, but to me, the main crux of the story is the relationship. That's how I categorized romance. I have Gargoyle by Andrew Davidson, A Suitable Boy, Possession on there. I have a book from when I was a kid called The Angels Trilogy by Lurleen McDaniel, which is like an Amish teen romance. Yeah. And then a book called Secondhand Memories, which was written on a cell phone. It's a text novel, cell phone novel, which was like a phenomenon of something, especially in Japan. So like it's not just... I have one straightforward romance, I think. And I picked it up at the dollar store. It's called The Sweetest Remedy by Jane Icaro. Just because there must have been something else in the book that intrigued me enough to pick it up. So yeah, that is just my word vomit on genre. And my favorite genres and what I look for in genres and why I like certain genres and all that kind of stuff. Let me know what your favorite genre is and why. Especially why. I'm really intrigued for those reasons. And that is it. Thank you for watching.